J.K. Rowling has publicly engaged in Holocaust denial, specifically towards the trans community. That is where we are at, a point in time where the heads of the anti-trans movement feel comfortable enough in their hatred and intolerance that they are openly denying the atrocities committed by the Nazis. This needs to be addressed. But first, a quick content warning for the following: Nazis, eugenics, anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and transmisia. If you like our work and appreciate the research put into each video, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon. You can also support us by liking, commenting, and sharing this video on social media. I'd also just like to take the time to remind our viewers that the statements made throughout our videos are the opinions of myself, the host, based on the evidence I have available to me. They are not, and should not, be taken as unquestionable fact, which is why we reference everything, because we're fallible. Thus we strive to give you, the viewer, the ability to check all evidence for yourself in order to make up your own mind, which is what the reference numbers in the top left corner are for, being numbers that match up with the reference list found in the transcript linked down below. As such, we encourage all viewers to do their own research to reach an informed conclusion about the topic. Hi there, my name is EssenceOfThought, she, her, they, them, and today we're going to be discussing how J.K. Rowling, in her latest attack on trans people, has fully embraced Holocaust denial, at least as decided by the Cologne Regional Court. We'll also be discussing Rowling's connection to the pioneers of reparative torture, aka gay conversion therapy, and her various connections to far-right figures. So today's video centers on a tweet Rowling made on the 13th of March 2024, in which she shared a 2023 thread by Malcolm Clark, adding, quote, "Thread on the persistent claims about trans people and the Nazis," end quote. Clark's thread begins with the assertion that, quote, "The LGBTQ+ lobby likes to claim that trans people were a key target of the Nazis. They weren't. In fact, trans healthcare was pioneered by a champion of eugenics and a surgeon who designed experiments at Dachau. His victims were not trans," end quote. The thread is over 24 tweets long, and I had originally intended to go through each tweet, debunking them. But then I realized something. Nowhere does Clark actually demonstrate his assertion that trans people weren't the victims of the Holocaust. All he actually does is engage in a game of ahistorical whataboutism to make it appear like Magnus Hirschfeld, a gay Jewish man, was ideologically in line with the Nazis, ignoring how he was against both genocide and sterilization. Yes, Magnus had only begun dismantling the belief of scientific degeneracy, which was a prominent, if not the dominant belief at the time. But he wasn't some uniquely monstrous individual like Clark paints him. Clark even goes so far as to imply that Magnus, a gay Jewish man, was responsible in part for the Holocaust by giving, quote, "credence to the Nazi conviction that gays were a threat to racial purity," end quote, and giving a, quote, "respectable shine to Nazi pseudoscience," end quote. This is, of course, classic anti-Semitism and victim blaming, in the same vein as Hitler was a secret Jew, promoted by none other than Rowling herself. The reality, meanwhile, is that contrary to the myth people like to construct about the period, the Nazis were not unique in their beliefs regarding degeneracy, and they certainly didn't rely on the views of a gay Jewish sexologist to legitimize them. A lot of the Nazis' views regarding eugenics and even their methods of extermination were imported from the US. That was the culture Magnus lived in, and he was a pioneer in challenging these assumptions with regards to gay and trans people. Did he go far enough? No, but he was the start of something different. If you want a more detailed take on Magnus's many flaws, I've gone ahead and linked a 2018 article by trans author Alex Falk. I mentioned that they're trans since Clark likes to assert that the trans lobby refuses to criticize Magnus and his flaws. Yet, perhaps more important than all this is how, even if Magnus was what Clark is pretending, that wouldn't mean that the Nazis didn't persecute trans people. To demonstrate just how absurd Clark's argument is, change trans people in this thread to gay or Jewish people, keeping in mind that Magnus, whilst not trans, was a gay Jewish man. Would any of his personal beliefs exclude gay and Jewish people as victims of the Holocaust? No, of course not. So why then would they exclude trans people? The argument doesn't make sense on a foundational level. The same goes for the beliefs and actions of plastic surgeon Erwin Gubant. They have no relevance to whether or not trans people were persecuted under the Nazis. So rather than take the bait and spend an hour debunking irrelevant points, let's instead focus on the evidence that trans people were persecuted under the Holocaust. As acknowledged by the United States Holocaust Museum, the Nazis did not differentiate between straight trans women and gay men. They were seen as one and the same, and were persecuted under the same laws. That's why you won't find Nazis documenting their victims as transvestite, which was the term used for all trans people at the time, including those undergoing hormone replacement therapy at the Berlin Institute before the Nazis raided it. Suffice to say, we don't know how many of the gay men persecuted under the Pink Triangle were trans people, just that some were, a fact that makes their erasure by anti-trans bigots even more insidious. They're literally misgendering Holocaust victims, denying them their humanity even in death. Though the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum is not alone. Indeed, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust also acknowledges that trans people, as with the rest of the LGBT+ community, were persecuted under the Nazis. Then, just last year, the German parliament officially recognised the persecution of trans people under the Nazis, stating that, quote, "Today's hour of remembrances focuses on a group of victims which had to fight for a long time to achieve recognition. People who were persecuted by the National Socialists because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity." End quote. This came following a recent court case in Germany, that of Marie-Louise Vollkrecht. In 2022, Vollkrecht replied to a thread much like Clark's, in which the poster tried to deny the fact that trans people were victims of the Holocaust, with Vollkrecht stating, quote, "I hate this narrative, it mocks the true victims of Nazi crimes." End quote. This led both individuals and groups, such as the German Society for Trans Identity and Intersexuality, to start tweeting the hashtag Marie denies Nazi crimes. Now, originally Vollkrecht had managed to get an emergency ruling by the Cologne Regional Court in August of 2022, which decided that the hashtag should be stopped until they could further investigate the matter, a decision that the anti-trans crowd began presenting as a definitive victory. This was not the case, however. What was actually happening was the Cologne Regional Court was gathering experts, namely historians who specialise in studying the Holocaust, before reaching a final decision. That's why, after listening to expert witnesses and evidence on the topic, the Cologne Regional Court overturned its original decision in November, legally ruling that Vollkrecht's actions could be accurately described as a denial of Nazi crimes. Then, 2 months later, we received the official acknowledgement of Nazi crimes against the entire LGBT+ community by the German government. So the matter has been ruled on in court, during which expert witnesses provided evidence to show that yes, sharing or commenting in support of posts that deny that the trans community was persecuted under the Nazis can be described as the denial of Nazi crimes, including the Holocaust. That means it is entirely fair, at least in my opinion, to say that J.K. Rowling has fully embraced Holocaust denial. Which, honestly, shouldn't come as much of a surprise. J.K. Rowling has been engaging in more and more aggressive attacks on the trans community over the last few years, whilst also offering to give money to far-right figures such as Kellie-Jay Keen-Minshull after she was rightfully criticised for marching alongside Nazis in her Oceania tour. Do note, I've got a series on Keen-Minshull's tour, as well as a video regarding Rowling's defence of Keen-Minshull's fascism, so do check those out for more. Another important fact to point out, especially considering the contents of the thread, is how J.K. Rowling's pseudonym, Robert Galbraith, is shared with Robert Galbraith Heath. Heath is the father of so-called reparative torture, also known as gay conversion therapy. Heath used implanted electrodes to fuck with his victims' brains in order to fix them of their homosexuality. J.K. Rowling is one of the wealthiest authors in existence. There is no chance in hell that her editors didn't think to do a basic Google search and come to her with the results when she chose said name. Meaning that, in my mind, she chose it in spite of the name's history and associations. This also aligns with the fact that, in one of her books, The Silkworm, Rowling has her protagonist threaten a trans woman with rape, telling her that, quote, "If you go for that door one more time, I'm calling the police, and I'll testify and be glad to watch you go down for attempted murder. And it won't be fun for you, Pippa," he added. "Not pre-op." End quote. This is Rowling's protagonist, the hero of her story, threatening a trans woman with rape in prison. This is before Rowling would go on to write The Ink Black Heart, in which the murder victim is a cartoonist murdered after being called out online for bigotry, including transphobia, leading many to view her as Rowling's self-insert. We also shouldn't be shocked considering the company Rowling keeps and promotes. On top of Keen-Minshull, we have Malcolm Clark, the creator of the thread Rowling is promoting. Clark is also the co-founder of the misnamed LGBT Alliance, a hate group primarily composed of far-right cis-het people that seek to destroy the rights of all LGBT+ people. To that effect, whilst discussing inclusive gender and relationships education, Clark attacked the idea, asserting that it'd act as, quote, "unnecessary encouragement to predators," end quote, specifically, quote, "predatory gay teachers," end quote. So, considering that, nothing about any of this is that surprising. Though what do you think? What consequences would you like to see for Rowling? Should the publishing industry have a duty to cut off bigoted authors, or would this overreach be too much of a risk? Are there any under-discussed facts about the Holocaust you'd like to give more visibility? Did you notice something I missed? If so, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you appreciate what we do here and want to help out, please consider becoming one of our wonderful patrons who make our work possible. On that note, we'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Hannah Banghart, Gert Van Vorst, Marble Wings, Sosh Daniels, Flynn, and Higgins the Seagull. And for myself, Adita and Levi, take care now.